Okay, here we go. So ratios, what we're gonna get through today, and let's go through a quick little definition. So what I want you to understand is that the way the class is gonna go, first of all, I'm gonna give you an example of what a ratio is. Then I'll get into specifically what the definition is. So let me bring up the example and you guys can understand. All right. So just let me know. All right. Can you see that diagram? So here's an example. Ratios are used every day. They are used for cars when you're driving miles per hour. They are used when you're buying an item in a store. So if your parent ever went to the store and they saw a produce that's been sold for per gallon or per pound, that's a ratio. And for example, my job, I get paid by a ratio. I get paid hourly, right? So ratios are around us everywhere you go. So here's a diagram that shows a exact ratio. You see the speed limit, guys? It says speed limit is 80, right? And in the night is 65. So based on 80, there's a new speed limit, and that's a ratio, right? Same as you said, 80 miles per hour. That's a ratio to 80 miles to an hour. Everybody understand?
Excuse me, sir.
Kai
It's me saying that he's in the waiting room.
I don't see Kai in the waiting room. Tell him to rejoin again.
There's something. There's something wrong with the virtual notebook, sir. Why is it asking me for my email, sir?
It should not be asking for your email, but don't pay any mind for now, because after class I'll figure that out. But let's take the notes here because I'm projecting the virtual notebook. So after class I'll figure out what's up.
I'm not new to Rome, sir.
All right, don't pay any mind. Let's focus on the screen share because it's the same thing. All right. So let's take this example for me. An example of ratio is a car that uses miles per hour. Write that for me. An example of ratio is a car that uses miles per hour. Okay. Tell me when you finish with that example. Okay. I heard a lot of yes sirs, so I'll continue. No, now that you understand an example in the real world, let's define it. Okay, let's define the ratios. So, ratios is comparing two numbers or two sets of numbers, right? So here's another example. There are 8 girls and 7 boys in a class. Let me ask a question, Khalil. If there's 8 girls and 7 boys in a class, how many students overall is in the class? Right? What would you do to get the total number of students?
Oh, the ratio, sir?
Right. So if I told you it is 8 girls and 7 boys, how would you get now the total number of students in that class?
You're 15.
Right. And what did you do?
Added them.
Right. So you added the two numbers that are being compared. Right. So if no question says, all right, good morning, Kai. I see you now. Good morning. So we're talking about ratios. We just got started, right? We're just saying that ratios is comparing two numbers, such as there are 8 girls and 7 boys in the class. So therefore,
Sir, don't move from that yet. I'm not finished with that part.
All right.
Sir.
And for those who have the textbook, it is for volume 1 is on page 78. Page 78. I'm gonna quickly go to the volume 1 textbook after this example.
I have a question, sir. What did you do to the virtual notebook, sir?
Right, I redesigned it, right? Because I wanted your parents to see what you've been doing. So yeah, because I realized that the virtual notebook is a little bit difficult for some students. So what I did was to redesign it so that in every topic you have a video that summarizes the class, right? So I probably
asking me for my email, sir.
I'll fix that because I think it's because I redesigned it.
But I'm trying to tell you I'm not new to the virtual.
Right, you've been using it with me for a very long time, so I'm not sure why. But I'll sort that out after class, right? So are you guys finished with the definition and the example? There are 8 boys, there are 8 girls in a class and 7 boys. So therefore, the ratio of girls to boys is 8 to 7. You're comparing the two values. Okay. Good morning, Ludi. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, let's continue, guys. Let's continue. Okay. Remember, this class is going to be recorded. It is actually being recorded. You can go back into the slide and go back into the virtual notebook, but we need to keep going. Okay. So now that we understand an example such as miles per hour, I know the definition, right? Let's look at ways to represent ratios. Okay, let's go to the first one. If in the previous example, what do we say about the girls and the boys? The ratio of girls to boys was what?
It's 8 to 7. Sir.
Right. So that we use the first method to write ratios. We use the word 2 to compare those two values, right? So we say 8 to 7. Now we're going to learn the second way of writing a ratio, which is colon, right? Now, can someone tell me, replacing the word 2 to compare the two values, use a colon and tell me what you get. So replace the word TO between the two values and put a colon for me. Right?
After I get 8, and so I get 8 colon 7.
Right, there you go. Okay, so look at this diagram from this Ghana diagram. There you go. So do you see that there are 3 colon 4, 8 colon 7. That's how you would have written it. Okay? All right, so that's the second method, right? So write that for me. The first method was to use the word 2. I'm going to show you an example. Write the example as well. Oh, my bad. One sec.
Sir, I'm written down the example, sir.
Right.
Numbers 1 and 2, sir.
Yeah, there we go. There's the example. So here's example 1. There's 8 girls to 5 boys. Right? Example 2. There are 3 apples to 4 oranges. Write those 2 examples for me. For
Only examples 1 and 2, right, sir?
yeah, so example 1 will be for the 2 method, and example 2 will be for the colon method. Right. Now we have one more method, and I'm going to give you a little question to help you see it. Okay. What are we comparing? We're comparing 3 values, 4 values, or 2 values? Anyone can guess? I'm giving you the answer.
So using a fraction.
Wow, good job, Khalil. Yes. So the third method to compare 2 values is to use a fraction. When you say you ate half of the pie, that's a fraction. You told me the ratio of how much you ate versus how much is left. So that's a fraction you use to explain the ratio of the cake that is left. Everybody understand?
Sir, don't go down yet, sir. I'm not finished.
All right. Now, if you have any questions...
Example 1, sir.
Oh, scroll back up to example 1. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, if you have any questions, remember, always type it in the chat, and I'll just explain it as I'm going along.
Sir,
Yeah?
can you repeat that, please?
Oh, for the fraction?
Yes, sir.
All right. So let me slow down. So the fraction now, write this example. We have a pie. We ate half of the pie, right? Right example. So we have a pie. We ate half of the pie. That fraction told us how much is left versus how much we ate. That is why it is a ratio to explain. But we're going to get into the definition. So let me know when you finish with the first 2. You guys are finished? All right. I heard a yes, sir. So let me...
No, sir.
All right. There you go. Okay. All right. So let me go over the pie one again. You ate half of the pie, right? So therefore, that half signifies how much you ate versus how much is left of the pie. So it's a ratio. Now, if I told you...
Don't take example 2.
Right? Now, if I told you I ate 3/4 of the pie, how much of the pie didn't I eat? If I told you that, hey...
Only a quarter, sir. You didn't eat a quarter.
Right. Okay, Khalil. But I want to hear from Harry and PayPal now. Let me give you another example, PayPal and Harry.
It's PayPal.
Sorry, my bad. PayPal. I'm going to give you an example. I walked 7/8 of a journey to town. How much of the journey didn't I walk? Right? I walked 7/8. 7 divided by 8. How much of the journey didn't I walk? Right. All right, good. Harry, your turn. I run. One moment. I run 3/4 of a mile. How much of a mile didn't I run?
A quarter.
Right, there you go. There you go. Okay, let's move on to the third example now. Now, we're going to use a fraction now, as I just said. So, write this example. You can write Hunter, Brandon, or you can just write two persons who are playing basketball. Person 1 scored 5 baskets, and person 2 scored 6 baskets. You want to tell me now what was the ratio of the baskets scored, right? And let me break down this question. So let me type for you below it. So let's go up here. So in this question, right, you're given two persons. What were their names? In this question, we are given anyone? What were the names of the two persons playing basketball?
Hunter and Brandon.
Right. So in this question, we're given two persons. You're gonna write this based on the person.
Sir, can you scroll up, sir? Wasn't finished with the example.
All right. So let me just keep typing until you're ready. So it's in this question, we're given two persons based on the person listed first. The value mentioned. All right. Value mentioned first in the ratio will go to that individual. The value mentioned second will go to the second individual. All right. Okay, there we go. So let me know when you're finished, and I'm just gonna explain why we say ratio of 6 baskets to 5 rather than us saying 5 baskets to 6. Okay?
Because,
Alright.
sorry, did we just say it?
Alright. So I'm gonna explain now why we say 6 baskets to 5 rather than saying the other way around of 5 baskets to 6. Understand? Because there's a reason behind why we say that position first. Okay, so let me scroll down a little bit. All right, do you see where I say in this question? Right below the diagram, it says in this question. Can someone read that for me? Let me pick on Emma. Emma.
In this question, we are given two persons. Based on the person listed first, the value mentioned first in the ratio will go to that individual. The value mentioned second will go the second individual.
Right. Okay. So in the first sentence, what did it say? It said Hunter and Brandon, correct? So therefore, whatever value Hunter has to be the first value in the ratio. So what value did Hunter have? How much baskets did Hunter score?
6.
Right. So that's why we say 6 baskets, and then whoever was second, which is Brandon, will be placed after. Right? Because the question started with saying.
Sir, would it be 6 over 5?
Right. It would have been 6 divided by 5.
Sir, 5 cannot divide 6 without a remainder.
Remember, we're not working out the fraction. We're representing a comparison between two numbers, right? If I told you that...
would it be 6 baskets to 5 baskets, sir?
Repeat?
So would it be 6 baskets to 5 baskets, sir?
Right. So you're comparing 6 to 5. So it would have been 6 divided by 5. Understand?
Yes, sir.
Remember, you're not working out the fraction. You're just telling me a representation of how it would look comparing it. Right? Because you never get a question that says, based on a ratio, work out this fraction. No, you only represent the ratio using a fraction. Write this for me, because I want you to understand. When you are writing a fraction, let me type it just to make sure you're writing it. When you write a fraction to represent a ratio, let me go down. When you write a fraction to represent a ratio, everybody have that? you are only allowed to simplify. That means that if the value is an improper fraction, it must stay as such because that is the comparison of two values, or that is a comparison. Simple. So when you write a fraction to represent a ratio, you are only allowed to simplify. So let me explain now how would you have simplified. If I gave you that I scored 2 baskets compared to Khalil who scored 4, how would you write it as a fraction?
Sir, 2/4 and a half, sir.
Right. So you see, that's where you simplify it now, because 2/4 can be summed or divided into being a smaller fraction, but still representing the same.
By using 2, sir.
Right.
Sir, that's where HCF comes in, sir.
Right. Exactly. Because tell me, Khalil, doesn't a half and 2 divided by 4 is the same equivalent fraction?
Yes, sir. 2/4 is equivalent to half, sir.
Perfect. So now that you understand that, we can now go on to learn about the rules of ratios, because we just went through a lot of examples. We're going to go to the rules, because in life, there's always
Sir,
rules.
can you scroll down to the fraction part?
All right, let me scroll down again. Right there?
Sir, what did you do with the little bits? Sir,
Oh.
what did you do with the 2 sentences?
Okay, so in this question, we're given 2 persons. The first bullet point explains why we say 6 baskets to 5, based on the position of the persons or values mentioned first, right? So in this question, we're given 2 persons based on the person listed first. The value mentioned first will go to that individual. The value mentioned second will go to the second individual. You could call this a rule, right? It's basically a rule. If I told you that I went to score a goal first, there would be no point in time that you wrote someone else scored that goal. So you have to tell me that you have to use the ratio to compare that I scored the goal. Okay. All right, let's continue, guys. All right. Let's go now into the rules. Okay. Let me close this up. One moment. All right, there we go. All right, rules. There we
Sir,
go.
because it's just like said, it can be found in a maths textbook, right, sir?
Right. So
the gray one or the red one?
the gray one, page 78 in the gray one. Right. So now we're gonna learn about the rules, and these 2 rules are taken directly from the textbook, right? Page 78, chapter 3, volume 1, Raymond Tulsi. Okay. Now, what does rule 1 say, Harry? Harry.
Sir, what's the page again?
Page 78 in the volume 1 of the Raymond Tulsi.
That will it be gray or red?
Gray. I'll tell you the page.
I'm on page 78, but I don't see the rules there.
No, page 78. 78.
Sir, I'm on page 78, sir, chapter 3.
Right. Do you see ratio? It should be on the left side. Ratio.
It's on the left side.
Right. Okay. Now, Harry, I asked you a question now. What is the first rule on the screen? Can you read that for me?
Wait, sir, read it.
Yeah, read it for me.
When writing ratios, numbers should always be written in order in which the problem asks for them.
Okay. So that would be now. Tell me, what example did I mention earlier that it's the same thing as this with the basketball? Right. So who did I say were playing basketball, and what order were they in?
Hunter and then Brandon.
Right. Okay. Now the second one was the half and the 2 divided by 4 fraction that I was mentioning. If you have a ratio that is 2 divided by 4, you must simplify it in its lowest form, because that doesn't change its value, right? It's the same value. That's the only time you can change a fraction if it can be simplified into a lower version. Okay? All right. So those are the only two rules for ratios. Only two rules. You must tell me the ratio in order of the question stated. So if it said Harry, then Jazeel, you have to tell me the ratio of Harry first, then Jazeel. Then the next step is to tell me, can that fraction or comparison be simplified? Okay, let's continue. So now we're going to do some classwork. And I know you guys love classwork, right?
I like it.
Yes, 100%.
All right.
Sir, can you scroll up to rule 2, sir?
Or rule 2 basically said, right, it's something, Khalil, all ratios in fractions must be in their lowest form. Okay, so we're going to do some quick exercises. Okay, the first one, I'm pretty sure you guys can guess it. Just represent that ratio in the 3 forms that I told you. 3 forms that I told you. Quickly.
Just to the right.
All right. Khalil, do you have the I said all ratios that are in fractions must be in their lowest forms. That was the second rule. Now let's go to class exercise. So the first class exercise that you should do is to represent this first bullet point using the 3 ratios form that I told you. All right? Now I'm going to write another question. Okay, everyone finished the first task? Hello?
No, sir.
No, sir.
All right, let me give you one more moment. Okay.